It's 1675 in Chitradurga, a nation once revered for its bravery. Years back, the army was respected and valued by society, but recently, they have been neglected by King Chitradurga. During training, the army air out their views to the second commander, emphasizing food and salary increment if they are to sacrifice their lives for the nation. The men wish they had someone who would be brave enough to stand up for them. And that's when the chief commander of the military, Madonna, stepped up. Madonna manages to convince the army to get on his side. He promises to put a stop to eating and make sure that the army will never lack ever again. But to do that, Madonna would have to challenge the king. Later, we see a strange man reporting Madonna's mutiny plot to Dilwar Khan of the enemy nation. Meanwhile, at the palace, a hearing is held for Madonna, whose plot has also been made known to the king. The king confronts him, and Madonna replies by mocking King Chitradurga's incompetence. The minister, Barama, tries to calm the situation by explaining things to Madonna, but he ends up shunned. As a result of this, King Chitradurga orders that Madonna be relieved of his post. Madonna accepts the king's decision by returning his sword, but when the king shuns him, Madonna takes out his sword and commits treason. The minister then asks that Madonna be taken away immediately, but the army proves their loyalty to Madonna and apprehends Barama instead. Madonna is highly praised by the army, and his actions soon become the talk of the town. Madonna not only gained the soldiers' respect, but also a position in the new king, Don Rangappa Nayaka, court. Days later, a woman named Kanakava Nagati is seen traveling with her young boy Barama, and by the looks on Barama's face, they've probably been traveling for days. Kanakava encourages him, saying they're almost at their destination. Barama then gathers all his strength, and their journey continues. They soon arrive at a small village where Kanakava tries to ask for a job and accommodation. Sadly, she gets turned down by the villagers who claim that they can't give her anything without knowing her caste, which is a system of hierarchy in Hinduism, just like having classes in Western society. Kanakava and Barama then continue walking around looking for help when Manjapa, the owner of the village wrestling academy, stops them. Kanakava then asks for a job, but Manjapa laughs, saying women aren't allowed into the academy. But that doesn't stop him from offering Barama the opportunity to work there. Barama immediately accepts, and Manjapa offers them accommodation at his old house. Kanakava and Barama then thank him and proceed to start their new lives. But bummer, the house really is old and run down, so both mother and son immediately get to cleaning and patching up the place until it's habitable. As days pass, Kanakava and Barama eventually get accustomed to the village, ensuring they can afford meals while working their menial jobs. Oh, and unfortunately, the house isn't rainproof. One day, Kanakava goes to the well to fetch some water, but she ends up getting mocked for running away from her husband. Feeling humiliated, she runs off crying. Barama sees her crying on her return and asks her what is wrong. She explains to him that she's being disrespected because her husband isn't with her anymore. Barama then comforts her by asking her not to work for anyone again and that he will take care of their livelihood. From that day, Barama begins his new job. Why doing that? He also proves helpful to the villagers by helping those in need. One day, during one of the training sessions, Barama tries to correct a student on the right way to wield the mace. But instead of saying thank you, he rats Barama out, threatening to leave the academy if Barama, who's just a cleaner, will be allowed to belong without knowing his caste. Years later, it comes to the realization of the villagers that the army have been forcefully collecting crops and supplies in place of taxes that cannot be paid by the villagers. Meanwhile, Barama develops an interest in the academy, but his caste won't allow him to belong. Instead, he watches them from a distance and practices independently every evening. Meanwhile, every single passing day becomes hell for innocent citizens, all in the name of tax collection. But his caste won't allow him to belong. Instead, he watches them from a distance and practices independently every evening. Meanwhile, every single passing day becomes hell for innocent citizens, all in the name of tax collection. Meanwhile, a villager quickly rushes to report the soldiers to the now-grown Barama. With the information, Barama intercepts the soldiers, single-handedly takes them all out, and reclaims his village's supplies. For this act, Barama is honored and respected by the village people. The chiefs also suggest that Barama starts his own training academy to train other youths to help them protect their small village from the army. Additionally, he asks some of the men to go to the king directly and complain about their distress, knowing fully well that the king is a good man. With this decision, Barama takes his mother's permission to gather his own men. Kanakava is distressed that doing this might put Barama in danger, but Barama assures her that he will be fine. Later that evening, some of the men in the village pay a visit to the palace. On meeting the king, they quickly tender their problems, emphasizing that the soldiers now loot their supplies, despite having explained that due to the drought, they can't plant crops just yet, so paying taxes will be hard. The king is shocked to hear this, but promises to confront Madonna to find a solution to their problems. As the villagers exit the palace, the king immediately requests to see Madonna. That evening, Madonna is busy querying the soldiers for not bringing in enough goods and tax when one of his men informs him that the king has summoned him. Madonna mocks the king and refuses to go, but his wife tries to reason with him to go. Madonna then belittles her by calling her names and referring to her as a worthless woman who should know her place. But yielding her warnings, Madonna goes to see the king anyway. Madonna arrives at the palace, and King Rangappa immediately begins to confront him regarding the looting and imposing of heavy taxes on the people. King Rangappa also tells him that he is not pleased that Madonna passes orders without informing him. And despite increasing taxes and suffering the people, the treasury is reportedly empty, so the king demands answers and warns Madonna to fix this mess up. Later, King Rangappa tells his minister that he wants to meet former minister Barama in jail to get advice on handling Madonna. The minister then reminds him of what might become of him if Madonna finds out, but the king is willing to take his chances and asks that it be kept between them. The following day, Madonna gathers all the officials to question their work and to know why there haven't been any records of produce collected. It is then revealed that after collecting the supplies and goods from the villagers, the soldiers get robbed by a band of masked robbers during transportation. Madonna then orders them to find out who's behind it. That evening, King Rangappa arrives at the jail and manages to find his way in with the help of the minister. But guess who they also saw there? Yup, Madonna. Angry at Rangappa, Madonna immediately summons his pet tiger to attack. Meanwhile, Barama and his men continue to train day and night, ready to take on the soldiers whenever they come back. As usual, the soldiers did come to town, but instead of allowing them forcefully take their supplies, the villagers peacefully hand them over. However, during their transportation, Barama and his men struck, successfully retrieving their goods and returning them to the city. Back at the palace, Madonna gets furious on hearing the news. He badly wants to find and end those who would dare go against him. He calls for a court hearing, where he announces that the king went hunting but lost his life in the process. Without the help of the court men, Madonna has already selected the next heir to the throne, Suryakanthi, the son of Rangappa and a lunatic who can't even think for himself. Most importantly, someone for Madonna to control. Meanwhile, Barama and his men return with the goods to redistribute. During the process, they discover an orphan girl, Sidhambi, in one of the baskets. After introducing herself as an orphan who has nowhere to go after being abducted by Madonna's soldiers, the villagers agree to take her in. Not only that, but they also suggest she stays with Kanakava and Barama. As time passes, Sidhambi soon becomes part of the community and even starts to grow closer to Barama, who has become fond of her. More so, Kanakava has also come to accept Sidhambi as her own. One day, while Barama is cow herding with Sidhambi, the two get into a small argument regarding why Barama is fighting Madonna and not the king. Barama then accuses Sidhambi of siding with Madonna, but she waves it off, saying she only wanted Barama to be careful. Meanwhile, at the palace, Madonna comes up with a master plan to catch those responsible for looting the soldier's cart. He suggests that they hold a fight competition where he would be able to execute his master plan. The announcement soon reaches Barama's village, but Barama refuses to attend, fearing that it's a trap to identify them. However, Sidhambi persuades him, and eventually, Barama agrees that they will attend. The day of the competition arrives, and an announcement is made that the winner will be granted his wish by Madonna on behalf of the king. However, Madonna's true intentions were to eliminate most youths, especially after discovering from a spy that those who looted from the soldiers were young men. After Barama comes out victorious, a small troop of Dilwar Khan of Bijapur, the neighboring nation, fails in their attempt to assassinate Madonna. It is also revealed that Sidhambi has been Madonna's trained spy all this while. Madonna, on the other hand, mistakes Dilwar Khan's men for Barama and decides to eliminate Barama. That night, Madonna learns that Barama is spending the night at a wrestling academy in town. He then orders Barama's head to be brought to him immediately. Sidhambi then offers to do the honors, but Madonna declines. Instead, he allows one of his brothers to do the deed. At the wrestling academy, Barama's men express their anger about Barama letting love cloud his judgment in regard to Sidhambi and how she betrayed them without a second thought. While they're talking, they hear a sound outside. One of the guys goes to check it out and sees a lady leaving after having dropped a message to warn them about Madonna's brother. Thanks to the message, Barama and his men are able to successfully ambush Madonna's brother and his men. The following morning, Madonna awaits his brother's arrival only to see that Barama has returned his brother's head instead of bringing Barama's head as promised. This agitates Madonna, and he swears to get back at Barama. Meanwhile, in Barama's village, Barama gets scolded by the elders for acting rashly and putting his life in danger. However, they all agree to hide Barama to protect him from Madonna's men, who are likely to come for him. Back in Madonna's home, his mother slaps him across the face for breaking his promise not to get into such trouble, but he comforts her with a hug and a guilt-ridden heart. Not long after, Madonna arrives with his men in search of Barama. Seeing his people get hurt to protect him, Barama reveals himself to Madonna. But before Madonna can make a move, Sidhambi stops him, saying Barama must be taken to court, where he will be pronounced a traitor before punishment can be given. With that, Barama is chained up and taken away. On reaching the palace, Madonna easily gets the lunatic king to pass an order to eliminate Barama for his crimes. Following these instructions, Madonna orders them to throw Barama into the cell where his pet tiger is being held. But it's going to take more than just one tiger to bring Barama down. Barama wrestles with the feline, comes out victorious and breaks out of his cell. He then frees everyone, including Minister Baramappa and King Rangappa, who's surprisingly still alive. Chakana, one of Madonna's brothers, rushes to Madonna to report the situation to him. But in a fit of rage, Madonna disables him, asking why he didn't do anything to stop Barama, but ran like a coward. Meanwhile, Barama quickly escapes with his people, the minister and the former king. Back at the palace, Madonna's wife confronts him about his wrong deeds, leading to an exchange of words. Madonna then attacks her but realizes he has better places to waste his energy. Following this event, his wife tries to take her life, but is immediately rescued by some men who see her exiting the palace premises. After catching her breath, she reveals to the men that Madonna had plotted everything, including denying the army food and salary, in order to be able to manipulate them. Feeling betrayed, the army decides to turn their back on Madonna and capture him instead. Unfortunately, Madonna finds out about their plans and is able to escape in time. However, Sidambi is held hostage as she is the only one they can find in the palace. Meanwhile, Barama returns to his mother, who is thrilled to see her son in one piece. Minister Baramappa immediately recognizes her and reveals that Kanakava is the wife of the late king Chikana Nayaka. She then explains that she had to run away with Barama when Madonna started to kill all the king's men and family members of the king. After traveling from place to place, they found this village. Shocked and ashamed of their actions in the past, the villagers immediately apologize for treating Barama and his mother terribly. But the duo doesn't mind and has forgiven them a long time ago. After it has been settled, they immediately begin to seek a plan of action. King Rangappa then suggests that Barama should bestow victory on Durga. They then sit to plan further how Barama would go about it. Minister Baramappa suggests they get the army on their side, but King Rangappa is skeptical that they would join. While they're at it, a young maiden interrupts. Barama's men then immediately identify her as the girl who dropped the message that helped them escape Madonna's trap. The girl then informs them that she is only acting on Sidambi's orders and pleads for their help with getting Sidambi out of confinement. With help from the minister, they are able to set Sidambi free. She thanks the minister, and it is revealed that she is the princess of another nation that was under the tyranny of Madonna. Madonna had promised to make her queen and used her as a spy, but after finding out the truth about Madonna, she decided to help Barama, which was the night when she had sent them a message. Seeing that she's on their side, she immediately joins the party. Knowing Madonna, they are able to speculate that he might want to join hands with an enemy nation, and there would be no stopping him. Failing to find him, a festival is held to appeal to their gods. During the festival, a villager spots Madonna and immediately alerts everyone. Madonna is then singled out in the crowd, having to face Barama in a one-to-one epic showdown. During their battle, Barama gets an opening to deal the final blow to Madonna, but Madonna's wife intercepts, pleading for Madonna's life. Unfortunately, Madonna has no use for her anymore and outs her to rest without remorse. As a result, all the soldiers attack Madonna brutally, putting an end to his reign of terror. News about Madonna's demise soon reaches Dilwar Khan, and as the scene fades, he claims that Durga shall be his. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2020 movie Bichugatti Chapter 1, directed by Hari Santosh, starring Rajavardhan and Haripriya. Who would have thought Barama was of royal blood? And who else wants to know what Dilwar Khan is up to? Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.